The last video is going to go more in depth with types of figurative language. Since there's so many things, I wanted to quickly go over a few more and show you some examples. So first we have a metaphor. His hands were bulldozers moving the soul. So it's one thing to be able to point out, well, that's a metaphor, but the second and most important thing is to be able to explain the effect that that metaphor has. And a simile. Metaphor and simile are so similar. Her eyes sparkled like 10-carat diamonds. What's the effect of saying her eyes sparkled and comparing her eyes to 10-carat diamonds? I mean, it just shows kind of like how illustrious her eyes are shining. I ask you 500 times to sit down. Sounds like my third period. But yeah, it's a hyperbole. It's a technique to over-exaggerate to create a humorous effect. Personification, we just saw that in the poem. If you were to say the sunfish were dancing the tango in the pond, that would just illustrate or emphasize how fast the fish were swimming and jumping around. If you don't know what an idiom is, pay attention, because this is an idiom. It's a unique expression in language that cannot stand and should not be interpreted for exactly how it's said. So for example, it's raining cats and dogs. Probably is going to be doing that today because it's very rainy and cloudy today. But that just emphasizes how hard it's raining. It sounds as though cats and dogs are hitting the roof because it's raining that hard. We've talked a lot about imagery. Imagery is language that appeals to your senses. Desolate and lone all night on the lake where the fog trails mist creeps. What eerie or emotion does that entail? Onomatopoeia are words that suggest the sound. The barn door screeched when we opened it. Screeched is the onomatopoeia. We talked about rhyme scheme. And then refrain is a verse or phrase that repeats itself at intervals, usually like the chorus of a song. We have symbolism, which we also talked about last week, but it's an object, a tangible object used to represent something else. So maybe an outlaw's gun could symbolize proof of manhood or toughness. Tone, my goodness, if you don't know tone, you got to know tone. It's the author's emotional state of mind or attitude about the subject. So look at this example. The once bustling midway of the fairgrounds was now empty and trash-laden. The tone used by this author would be sad because the fair had ended. Alliteration is something else you can point out. It's the repetition of consonant sounds. It creates a musical effect to emphasize certain words. We often hear this, whether we know it or not, in advertisement and commercials. Yes, garbed all in green was the gallant rider. We're just kind of drawn to alliteration or things that repeat. And then dialect is something we really haven't talked about, but it can also be important. It's a regional variety of a particular language. Seen my lady home last night, jump back, honey, jump back. My southern dialect there. And I am done. I'm sorry if listening to my scratchy voice was annoying, but I had to do it somehow. So what you need to do now, and it should be linked in the Google form, are your 2 common lit passages. You only have 1 constructed response, so that's good. Whenever you and your partner are both finished, and I want you to take your time on this, so you may not even get to this today. I'm going to give you like a whole class period to do this on another day. But I want you to complete the language bubble map graphic organizer, which is going to have you fully analyze language. If you have questions, please raise your hand. And thank you for sticking with me.